Welcome to Change It Up Radio. I'm your host, Paula Shaw, and I'm over the moon about this show that we're doing today because it takes me back to my original training and where my heart really is, and that is in helping people who are dealing with loss and grief. It's the holiday season right now, and that is a really tough time of year for grieving people. Most of you know I've written 2 books on grief. Grief, when will this pain ever end? And saying the right thing when you don't know what to say. And those books are available on Amazon. And I'm really proud of them because they're not like epic sorts of books you got to read from cover to cover. Because I know when people are grieving, they're hurting and they really don't have the focus or the energy to read a big book. But these books are full of processes, tools, ideas, real helpful information so that you can get through your grief and not get stuck in it. But today on this show, my friend Ellen McCarty, who is a life performance coach who's all about sustaining success, even when life is lifing, she's also been a death doula, and most of you are probably unfamiliar with that term. But Ellen says life is sacred when you're being born, and it's also sacred when you're going to the other side. And so, with the experience she's had as a death doula, she's learned a lot about grief and about what's important to people in those final moments here on the planet. So please stay with us. We're going to talk about grieving during the holidays, why it's hard, the tough parts about everybody else looking so happy and you feel so out of it, about a holiday that seems to be all about family and maybe you don't have any, all the exhausting things there are to do during the holidays. So particularly if you're somebody who's feeling sad, if you're somebody who's grieving during the holidays, you don't want to miss this show. So stay with us because here we go. Hey, everybody. So delighted to have you here joining Ellen McCarty and I because we're going to, as promised, talk today about grief and the holidays. Because Ellen, you know from your past work in a lot of cancer wards, in a lot of big hospitals, Harvard and Tufts and Brown, this is a grueling time of year for people who have lost somebody, people who are dealing with illness, anybody dealing with any kind of loss really has a hard time at this time of year. In fact, just the other day, one of my clients said to me, I wish I could just pull the covers over my head and not come out until January 2nd. And I feel like that sums it up, doesn't it? I mean, it's just so hard to face everything that's going on at this time of year.
It's hard to be in the world around you.
Yes.
When you're the family that is dealing with a loss, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
so over the top in your face at the holidays.
Oh, totally.
In every way with a loving message behind it, but really,
Yep.
really hard.
And I think we really want to make the point up front. We're not just talking about death. We're talking about any kind of loss creates grief. So whether you lost your home, lost your job, got a bad health diagnosis, lost a relationship, whatever it is that puts you in a state of having experienced loss, that thing creates grief. And grief and the holidays, they're kind of like direct opposites, aren't they? I think that's the core of the problem right there. They're opposites for a lot of reasons we're going to talk about today. But I think one of the reasons I really wanted to do this show is to let those people know who are hurting at this time of year that we see you and that you're not alone. and that there are some things that you can do to help yourself because it is difficult. And if you try to put on the I'm fine face and go to all the parties and take part in all the activities and everything, you're just probably going to put yourself through a lot of stress and pull more energy that you don't have in the first place, and then things just tend to get worse.
Yeah, and I feel like you're really going to be talking a lot too about how to do that, like gracefully disengaging from those invitations to
Mhm.
really tend to your self-care and give yourself what you really need.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
actually, this week, I will be
Mm.
putting up on my website, paulashaw.com. I'm switching out the free gift that we always give a free gift, which normally is 20 things to say and not to say to people in emotional
Ah,
pain. And that can be
which is
very
so
handy
valuable.
at this time of year. But I'm going to switch it out for the holiday survival checklist. And there
Woohoo!
are some great ideas on the holiday survival checklist as to ways people can change it up or do things that can be helpful and healing. So,
And I want to say something, Paula, about that. I'm so
mhm.
grateful for that. That is such a gift. And I think, I got a little nervous when you said you're changing up the free gift because I'm like, I send so many people there for that free gift that you had or have up until this new one comes, right?
Mhm. Yeah, it's
Because
still
it's
there.
such a helpful tool. You
Yes.
want to go on and make sure you get that one before. Um, but when you said, "Oh my God, these tips," what say it again? What is the holiday?
Holiday
Oh, survival.
survival checklist.
Okay, so I'm down again. I'm gonna go get that free
Ah,
gift again.
yes. And
Timely.
one of the things I think that's so great about it is, and one of the hopes I have for this show is, first of all, acknowledging this is not like any other time of the year for people who are hurting. It's
Mm,
sort of like they're walking around with these open wounds, and everything happening is pouring salt in those wounds and just making them hurt even more.
mhm,
And so we need to acknowledge that. We need to say, we see it, we got it. And here's why it's hurting so much. And here are some things you can do. So I'm kind of looking at this as a
mm,
two-part series. Today we'll talk a lot about why is it so tough at this time of year. And then we're going to really hit on in the next show next week, hit on some tools, some changes, some different ways of thinking that may help people really work with the feelings that they're going through.
that's
So,
awesome.
first of all, let's look, Ellen, at some of the reasons why this time of year is so tough. So, the first one that comes to me is it's all about joy and fun, right? It's like
Hmm.
we barely finished eating the turkey and people are outside putting up lights and you're going
Mm,
into the stores. I mean, actually, this year, the Christmas stuff has been up since Halloween was done. It's like Thanksgiving didn't even exist. So everywhere you go, the decos are up, the
mhm.
lights are on. It's all constant, constant,
Christmas music on
constant
your car
reminders.
radio,
Yeah,
like you can't even listen to your regular tunes and
totally, totally.
right?
Constant reminders that
Mhm.
this
Social
is
media.
a different time of year,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And so it's all about fun. It's all about festivities. The party invitations are coming. Everybody is talking about food and baking
Family.
cookies. Yeah, there's the other big piece. It's all about
Mm.
family, right? It's
Mhm.
all about getting together with family, with friends. I mean, my daughter's having a party on the 11th of December, kind of a housewarming sort of thing.
Oh, that's cool, yeah.
And I mean, all our conversations are about what is she going to cook? What are we going to do with the kids? What are we, all these, it's all about the festivities.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I'm not dealing with any serious loss issues right
Yeah.
now. So I can be participatory in all the fun conversations
Hmm.
and not be hurting. But what if I was? What if I'd just broken up with a boyfriend? Or what if I just lost my job?
Hmm.
And here's my daughter in this like totally opposite place where it's all about this new exciting house, this first time holidays there,
Yeah.
the boyfriend and all these wonderful joyous things in her life. And have you ever had the experience, Ellen, of like everything in your life was singing and your good friend or your sister or someone else that you knew well was going through hell?
Yeah. It's like a full stop cement wall, right? Like you.
Yes. Yes. And that's a hard thing for both parties. It's
Yes, it
hard for the
is.
joyful
Yeah.
person because they want to share, they want to experience their joy, and yet they don't really feel comfortable doing that. And it's hard for the hurting person because they wish they felt different, but it's killing them that this person seems to have it all and they've got just this horrible, terrible thing going on in their life. So
And it
it's,
triggers such a cycle. Then there's shaming and judging yourself and fake it till you make it. And it's all exhausting.
yes. And that's why I talk about when I used to be doing my 12-week grief support group.
Yeah.
One of the things I really encouraged people not to do was put on the I'm fine face. Because really, truly, we do much better with our grief when we're authentic.
Mm.
When we are authentically expressing what we're authentically feeling, it all just seems to go better. But there's so much pressure at the office, at a party, at lunch with your friend. There's so much pressure to just try to act as if
Yeah.
everything is
Yeah.
not as bad as it is.
And I remember family members going through the holiday,
Mhm.
patients, family members once they passed. And one of the things that I understood they went through during that holiday season was it may sound good to just be authentic about it, but people can't handle it.
Mhm.
So it's really about, who you can be authentic with and who you
True.
need to fake it with, because it's going to create some upset. And there's so much energy that goes into all of that that is taken from the grieving process, right?
Oh
The
yeah.
being with what's so. And
Mhm.
so really being able to let go of being, well, I got to tell you, because they would also would say I don't give a crap about how anybody feels, and I can also
Mhm.
walk around with this look on my face. I remember,
Mhm.
when my parents died, I came home and I looked in the mirror and I had these huge frown lines, that grew on my face. And
Overnight, probably with the
well,
gray
yeah,
hair.
my parents passed with like 10 weeks or so
uh,
within each other, and it was
oh
a
my
lot of
gosh.
this, it was a lot of
Oh
grief, but I had to
yes.
train my face back up. But
Mm,
being able to show that, who do you show that with?
true.
And I think it's really isolating, isn't it? It's so
Oh
isolating.
yeah.
There's so many things that are going on.
Well, one of the things I hear from clients all the time, everybody's tired of hearing my story. Everybody's tired of me being sad. Everybody's tired of me talking about this. There's nowhere I can go. There's no one I can process it with. Everybody's sick of me. And you hit it a minute ago when you said isolating. When you
Yeah.
feel like there's nobody to go to,
Hmm.
like everybody is tired of your story, of your sadness, of your tears, what
Hmm.
do?
Hmm.
You crawl in your shell. Usually you close the shades and you feel defective. You feel isolated. You feel like you're not worthy of being in anybody's presence because you're a drag. You're a buzzkill. You're a bummer.
As a grief expert, Paula, I get so excited about the concept of you sharing this information,
Mhm.
particularly over the holiday season. And I think that it's so important because its time has come. And I love that you point out grief isn't only about losing a loved one, by
Mhm.
tragedy or COVID.
Mhm.
So much grief was experienced during COVID.
Right.
And that was the loss of relationships and friends and families and people you
Mhm.
just can't communicate with now.
Yeah.
There was a lot of unveiling of some of the shadows, if you will, right? Like
Mm.
the things we didn't know about the people that we loved and the positions that they held and how we might respond to them. It
Mhm.
was a very complex time of holding on and then finally, like, we can't do it for a
Right.
lot of people. And that's not just loss. That's like a tragic, right? Separation. I mean, not
Yeah,
that loss isn't that anyway, but it feels like it played out on a global stage,
it really
you know?
did. I know I
And
remember doing a show at that time that I
mhm,
called A World Full of Grievers.
yep,
Everything in our lives
yep,
at that time was about loss. We lost our way of life. We lost the
mhm.
children lost going to school. We lost going to our jobs. We lost being out in public. We lost our sense of safety and security being with other humans. It was such a huge grief time.
It's still going on.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
still going on. It's 2022. Yes, it's the end of 2022 or whenever this airs, right? But
Hmm.
uh, when was COVID?
Yeah, right. And, I could tell you from
We're just on the
personal
heels of it.
experience, 2 months ago, I was going like, oh, thank God COVID is over and life is normal
Yeah.
again. And then I got it. And I pretty much lost the month of October. I just was not myself. The sickness itself was very difficult. And then the energy was just gone for weeks. And then there was the cough that seemed like it was going to
Yeah.
last for the rest of my life. It was
It's a
awful.
lot.
Hmm. But it gave me a sense of what people are going through now because I felt so isolated. I needed things I couldn't just run out to the store and get. It felt like everybody else's life is going on. They're all fine. And nobody's thinking about me. I'm here all by myself and nobody is here for me. And I wasn't even grieving. I was just ill. But it gave me such a sense of, oh my God, yeah, that's what's
Hmm.
coming up with the holiday season for so many people.
Well,
And
I know the tools you have, and I've sent a lot of people also, clients of mine, and friends and family to your website and I remember I used to do your YouTube videos all the time just to
yeah,
get centered and they're
they're
really
still there.
wonderful. They're like 3 minutes and they're like
Yeah.
a quick reset, right? Like
Hmm.
how to get
Hmm.
grounded and just get
True.
connected. And
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how I would have managed some of like literally the tools that you've taught me over the years that I've known you
Hmm.
are most of the tools come from you. See, I
Yes.
do a lot intuitively, which is how I got to work with these families, and it's sort of
Mhm.
spiritual and intuitive. You are a grief and energy expert. And to me, this is the missing piece for me, right? Like, I don't have the tools. I don't know what it is that I do,
Mhm.
but what you have and what I've gained in terms of literally things I can pull out of my toolbox,
Uh-huh.
Paula, it's how I've done life,
Mm.
over this
Oh.
past, maybe, we're going on a decade, but I'm going to call it the last 6 years,
Mhm.
right? Like for
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
So to be able to get that out and help so many people that are looking, like people can hear it now too. We're all in the same freaking boat.
Yeah.
Show us, how
Yes.
can
It's
we,
so true.
survive?
Yes. And I love what you just said. And I want to talk a little bit about a couple other reasons why this time of year is tough. But then after
Yeah.
we take our little break, I'd like to come back and maybe share a couple of those tools and
Oh, that'd be cool.
ideas that you've used, that I've used, that have
Hmm.
helped some grieving people. I think that'd be great.
That's awesome.
But one of the things we haven't talked about yet that makes
Mm.
this time of year so tough is it triggers memories of the past when things were different, right? Different, better, or more.
Right.
And if you had some fabulous Christmases with your mom and dad, and now as you experienced in one year way back when, they're gone.
Mhm.
What do you do with that void that's now in that place where there was a person or persons that you love
Mhm.
so much?
Mhm.
It's really tough, really tough. I've been dealing with several widows in my private practice lately, and it's so hard because so many of them almost have been with those men their whole adult life.
Yeah.
It's like they haven't done adult life without those men in it. And now, not only are they having to do life, but they're having to do the holidays.
Ah.
So it's so difficult because of those past memories. And one of the other things you did hit on a minute ago that I really want to emphasize for everybody is even for those of us that are in a great place, the holidays can be exhausting because there's so much activity, parties and shows and friends and activities and shopping and baking and wrapping and all that stuff can be exhausting.
And I'll throw in there socializing because for me,
Yes.
socializing is exhausting. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. But if I've got too much stacked up and if I'm doing things out of obligation, it drains my energy.
Yes. Yes. That's a really great point. And
Mm.
we want to remind the grievers listening out there, you're already in a state where your energy is depleted because grief takes energy. It takes work. You know, it's like I used to say to my grief groups, you know, they'd all be going, I'm so exhausted. And nobody understands. And I used to say, no, you know, but you have to take care of yourself. Because if you had been hit by a Mack truck and you were in a body cast, you wouldn't be demanding of yourself
Oh, that's so
everything that you
good.
normally
Yep.
do. Well,
Hmm.
grief is a big fat Mack truck.
Yep.
And we are
That's
in a
great,
kind
Paula.
of body cast. And so we need to allow ourselves limitations, rest, uh, not changed expectations. You know, we can't show up like we're 100% when we're 30%
And
or we're
Paula,
40.
you're giving people permission to grieve. And
Yeah.
that's the other thing that the griever really needs is like,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you need your mother, you're not feeling well and you just need somebody to say, no, 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 you're not going to do that. You're going to turn around. You're going to go in your room. You're going to lay your head down and I'm going to bring you a cup of tea. Okay. That's just not going to happen now. And
That's
it's like
right.
we will power through the day and keep charging on. But, I think what you do for so many is to acknowledge what's you can't learn any of the tools or help yourself until you're heard,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
right? And
so true.
understood and gotten.
So
And
true.
once you get gotten, then you can, and you're given permission. Okay, you
Mm-hmm.
now have my permission to
Mm-hmm.
just lay there and not move until you're
Yes.
inspired to do something else.
Yes. I
And I
love
think
that
that's
you
what you
said that.
do.
I used to say to my grief groups, your pain has to have its day in the sun before it's willing to heal and go away.
Yeah.
And you just basically said that so beautifully, you know? And I think that's one of the things I really encourage grieving people to do. Express what's going on, express
Mhm.
what it feels like. Excuse me, express the the thoughts, the feelings, the confusion, the anger, the fear, all these different faces of grief show up. And
Yeah.
most of the time, we're baffled. We don't know what to do with them. But the first thing is acknowledging that they're there and then finding that safe someone to express them to.
Yeah,
And
for
that
sure.
is a major step toward healing.
It really
All
is.
right, Ellen, we have to take a quick break, but we will be right back. I'm so excited about this conversation.
Yeah, this is good. Thank
All
you.
right, just a quick break here, and we'll see you in a second. All right, welcome back to Change It Up Radio. I'm your host, Paula Shaw, and I'm here talking to Ellen McCarty, who has worked in the cancer wards of Tufts, and I started to say Techs and of Brown and Harvard and Tufts, some of the really big schools. She's been a death doula. She knows a lot about grief, both from her own life and some big losses she's been through, and professionally. And I invited Ellen to be here with me now at this time of year, talking about grief and the holidays, because it's just a tough time. It's a tough time for people who are dealing with any kind of loss. And I'm hoping that the conversation Ellen and I are having will help those of you who might be feeling alone, might be feeling nobody cares, nobody understands, nobody's ever felt like this before. Any of those feelings, believe me, I understand them. I've been there and I've helped a lot of people who have been there. So please hang with us. We're going to be talking a bit more now about what's so hard about this time of year for grieving people and giving you some thoughts of ways that you can take better care of yourself at this time of year, because I think that's really it. We have to acknowledge that we're in a special state, so to speak, right? We can't just jump up and do everything we've done every Christmas for the last 20 years because we don't have the energy. We don't have the focus. We don't have the will, mostly. We just don't have it. So, Ellen, what's something that you've used with families in the past that was helpful to them when they were, oh, you know what, though? We forgot one major area of grievers that I do want to talk about before we get into some
Okay.
tools.
Yeah.
Anticipatory grievers. And those would be people, and I'm definitely dealing with some now, people who maybe have a loved one who they know is going to move away, far away, and the whole way of life is going to change, or a loved one who's perhaps terminally ill, or a loved one who is dealing with Alzheimer's or uh, dementia. I started to say depression, but that's a tough one too. But dementia, because the outcome is bleak any way you cut it. Things are going to get worse or things are going to end.
Yeah.
And that anticipation of what it's going to feel like when that final ending comes can be just as debilitating as it is to exist after that ending has come. And I know, Ellen, especially since you worked with people, families in the cancer wards where a family member might have been terminal, you've dealt with plenty of anticipatory grief. What do you find is one of the most difficult aspects of it? And is there anything that you ever found to be really pretty helpful to share with them or to give them?
Yes, and yes. And I think that you said it well. I think that the energetic experience of anticipatory grievers, I really love that term. I've never heard of that. But I think that the state is the person that's passing is preparing to pass. So as a death doula, this is a sacred time, just like birth. This is how the lens through which I look at passing. And so I'll help somebody see that this is indeed something that they can do their way and peacefully and all of that. So there's that one side. And part of the hardest part for the person who's passing is, how am I going to make it any easier on the people that I'm leaving?
Right.
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 And then on the people that are leaving, that are going to be left behind, it's the same thing. They're polar struggles. So
Mm,
the person anticipating the passing is wondering, have I done enough? Can I do any more? What's this, like,
right.
right? Like, I mean, I
Hmm.
haven't been a good daughter. I haven't been a good child. I haven't been a good husband. I haven't, right? Like,
Yeah.
what can I make up for? And this other aspect of not wanting to let go,
Hmm.
not wanting to
Absolutely.
let go. And so the
On both
intersection
parts,
of,
right? On both parts.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And so what typically occurs in my experience is the person who is passing comes to terms with it before the people that they are leaving
Yes.
behind, right? It makes
Yep.
sense.
Hmm.
They get there.
Hmm.
And then that's when my attention would move to the family members. And and then I could do things like explain to them. I heard this so many times. I went for a glass of water.
Oh, yeah.
I've been at their bedside
Mhm. Yes.
24/7 for the last 8 weeks.
Hmm.
I went for a glass of water and they passed. And it's like I wasn't there for them.
Yes.
I wasn't there for them. And one of the big pivoting perspectives that seems to have been very helpful for people who have experienced that, the
Hmm.
ones who are left behind, is that what's really happening is that the person who has passed, right, wanted you to leave. So they didn't
Yes.
have to do this in front of you,
Yes.
right? It was like their little gift, their gift at the end,
Hmm.
right? Is like, no, honey, if you leave and all that hope that you're holding for me, you're praying for me to
Yeah.
stay.
Yes.
So I would help the family members let go. You don't have to pray
Hmm.
for them to stay. It's time to pray for them to be peaceful.
Hmm. That's such a beautiful story. And it is so true. I've heard it a
Yeah.
100 times too. I just
Hmm.
went for 5 minutes to get something to
Yeah.
eat or whatever. And I think it's very true too that the person who's moving on, going on, knows it's going to be painful, both for them to leave the people they love and for the people they love to see it. I was privileged to actually be there when my father in law passed,
Mm.
and I saw his spirit leave his head. It was amazing. My children saw it too. And I was so grateful that he let us be there. But so often that isn't the case. And I know it's very frustrating for the people left behind because they do, like you said, they feel guilty. Oh no, in that moment when they needed me, I
Why
wasn't
did I?
there.
Yeah.
But the truth is, you did exactly what they needed you to do. You left so that they could move on. And one of the things I've shared with families so many times, Ellen, that seems to help them,
Mm.
and this is an actual fact. Quantum physics has proven that energy cannot be created or destroyed. All the energy that has ever been is here in the whole universe.
I
It's
love that.
mutable, so it can change form,
Hmm.
but it cannot be destroyed. So the energy that animated your loved one, your mother and your father, still exists. It's just changed form. And if that energy was attracted to you and interacted with you for all that time, do you think you've lost it now?
Mm.
I that
That's
was
beautiful.
very comforting to me when I learned it. And I often share that with people and they find it comforting too. It's just
So I will
changed form.
definitely be adding that to my toolbox. And one of the things that I adore about it is it's fact based.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is all woo, like it's always energy for me and
Hmm.
vibration and intuition and guides and all of that sort of thing. And so it's not as grounded as facts,
Hmm.
right? And
Right.
so there's a lot of people that need to know, the science behind it,
Yes. And
right?
I think you're right. And for those kind of really
To believe.
grounded, concrete people,
Mm-hmm.
something airy fairy is not going to help them.
Mm-hmm.
That just like they need
But
to
what's
anchor
interesting
on
about that
something.
is that both perspectives are correct. We're
Right.
saying the same thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that we're coming from a place.
A place. Yep.
Right. And there's some people who love the airy fairy, like that's the way they hear.
Totally.
There, and it's not,
Totally.
it's about language,
Yeah.
right? It's like we don't talk mathematics to somebody who's in
Mm-hmm.
language, right?
Exactly.
It's just a different alphabet.
Right. If we don't
Yeah.
use the right words, people can't hear. We have to talk to people in language they can understand. And if you're a real concrete, linear thinking person, airy fairy, you don't hear.
You won't
But
hear
if
it. That's all.
you're more airy fairy oriented, like I would say the majority of people in the earth find comfort in believing that the spirit of that person is now in this wonderful place that we call heaven. A lot of people find
Yeah.
that really comforting.
Mhm.
But then if others would not. And so I
Well,
love
this
that
is what
point you
I
made.
love. I'm talking over you and I apologize, but this is what I love about you, Paula, because you're both. You work with energy, which is source, which is so beautiful and so beautiful on you. And you know the chakras and the crystals and the things that move
Mm-hmm.
our spirit. And you have the science and the facts, and you have the tools and the little triggers,
Mm.
the tools are like tactile tapping and things that we can
Right.
literally do.
Right.
It's the whole ball of wax for whoever is listening, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like no matter where you're coming from, it's okay. We're going to give you tools from each of those different languages. That's what you provide, Paula. I
Thank
love
you.
that.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Ellen. That is really one of the things I love most about my grief book.
Yes.
Grief, When Will This Pain Ever End, which you folks can get on Amazon. But one of the things I love about it is it's not a book you have to read from cover to cover. It's not theory, it's tools, processes, articles, short things that you can do, because my belief is you got to do a little something every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps you move through
Mm-hmm.
grief and not get stuck in it.
Yeah.
And that's what I tried to provide in that book, a little something you can do every day. Like you mentioned, the videos that we have on the YouTube channel
Yes.
um, give you a breathing method, maybe. In fact, one of the things I was thinking we could share with our listeners right now is balanced breathing, which
I
I have
love that.
loved so much over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be so simple. So if you are only listening to this and you're not seeing the video, I'm going to describe to you what you do. And we're just going to cross our hands over the chest, the upper chest, and just have them resting right there. And then cross one ankle over the other. Now, if, like in my case, my left hand is over my right hand, so I want to put my right ankle over the left ankle because we want it to be opposites. And then all we have to do, the reason we're doing this, by the way, is the natural flow of energy is in the shape of the infinity sign or the figure eight. So when we do this, this is about as close as we humans can
Mm-hmm.
come to looking like a figure eight. But what this does is it helps our energy to flow calmly, because when you're grieving or when you're upset, energy gets really erratic. It's all over the place. And so we want to just bring it in, let it be still, let it flow. You know that old line, go with the flow. And this helps us to do that. And then we do one more thing. And I can't do it because I'm talking, but I would encourage you to do it, Ellen, and all the listeners who are not driving or doing anything active. Just on the in breath, breathe in through your nose and put the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth. And on the out breath, release the tongue back down to the floor of the mouth and let the breath flow out of the mouth. So you're breathing in through the nose, tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth, and releasing out the mouth with the tongue resting back down on the floor of the mouth. It sounds simple, and really a lot of this is based on acupoints, which many of you who know acupuncture or who have ever experienced acupuncture know those are powerful little points on the body that, when stimulated or touched, or even put little electrical probes on, they do that sometimes now, that can cause actual change in the energy. And this method that I've just described to you, called balanced breathing, and by the way, if it was confusing to you, if you go on YouTube to my Paula Shaw YouTube channel, you will see balanced breathing demonstrated in video for you there. But this is a wonderful way to calm. If you're just crying so hard, or you're feeling confused, or you're feeling hopeless, overwhelmed, all of those kinds of feelings, just sit and do this balanced breathing, and you will find that you're going to feel so much calmer in a very, very short amount of time. I love that one for those reasons.
Well, I used that so frequently, and
Mm-hmm.
as I was getting the benefit of doing this, as you were describing it, I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking, Paula, we need to do this before we start this conversation, because,
Yeah. I
you
know.
know,
It does. It
I can
just
feel the
brings you
landing.
in.
Hmm.
And it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, another thing I want to suggest to our grieving listeners as another tool, and then, as I said, next week we'll get a lot more into tools and helpful processes. But I want to, right now, at the beginning of the holiday season, give you permission to do things differently.
Whew.
If you have always made chocolate chip cookies, or if you have always put lights up on your house, you do not have to do that this year.
Mm.
You may not have the energy. Now, if you think about it and you feel like, oh, you'd love to do that with your grandchildren and that would be fun, or maybe have your girlfriend over for a glass of wine to help you,
Mhm.
if that feels joyful, do it. But if it's another thing on the checklist that's already too
Mm.
long,
Mm.
don't do it.
Well, I love
Don't
that. And
have to.
permission granted, right?
Yes, right.
And what I love about the practice that you suggest there is the
Mm-hmm.
experience that it brings. So, in
Mm.
my experience, the result of letting myself off the hook is re-engagement
Mm.
in a more authentic way.
Mm-hmm.
So, like taking all the tradition off the table
Yeah.
and really experiencing the relief of being off the hook.
Mm.
Like literally, that's such a good phrase. It's like I feel like I literally just the back of my coat got let off the hook, right?
Yes.
And I can experience that in sort of a pause and really like
Mm.
get it. I've let myself off the hook and I have this space.
Mm-hmm.
What fills in for me is the thoughts like, oh, I could, do something with my grandniece, right?
Yes. Yes.
She would love that, and we could go do this or whatever. So other things that are more authentically joyful, and
Yes.
not this responsibility or tradition. Traditions are great, you can get back to them, and I'll always make my Christmas crackle.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't necessarily do it in the same way, or
Right.
the Christmas tree and who I have dinner with,
Exactly.
right?
Or for as many people, it's
Yeah.
okay to bring it in this year. It's okay to do things with smaller groups of people who feel
Mhm,
safer, who
mhm,
feel more comfortable to be around. Maybe the big holiday party or the big office party is just more than you can handle. You don't
mhm.
have to. You don't have to do it.
Taking a bath by candlelight could be all you want to do. I mean,
Oh, it
seriously,
sounds
simple.
beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one more thing I'd like to add before we end this show, speaking of candles,
Mm,
one of the things that's often a problem when the family gets together, if someone you love has passed over during that year, We went through this. In fact, I'll speak about my own family. My brother-in-law died unexpectedly. It was very shocking and really difficult. And the first Thanksgiving after his passing was agonizing for us because it was one of those deaths you had no preparation for. And so, what we did, I went out and I found a very beautiful special candle. And so, we set a place at the table for
Mm.
Larry, and his candle was there. And before we started the meal, we each took the candle in our hands and we had the option of either speaking about him, saying something about him that we loved, or a fun story, or something we remembered, or we could just hold it for a moment silently and then pass it to the next person.
That's
And the
beautiful,
beauty
Paula.
of that was we acknowledged the loss, because if you don't talk about it, and it's very tempting not to, because everybody's feeling kind of festive and you're all gathered together. But if you don't talk about it, it's that elephant in the middle of the living room that
And
everyone
I'm
knows is
so
there.
I think that's so beautiful. And it's a ritual, right? You
Yes.
can create it like a ritual of
Yes.
honoring,
Mm-hmm.
so that that's acknowledged, and then go on and be joyful, enjoy what you can, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And
Enjoy each
having
other.
acknowledged it, sort of like released the energy of
Yeah.
being able to be genuinely joyful
Well
to
said.
be
Well said.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very special.
That's
So
really
I
cool.
want to encourage anybody who is listening to this show and going through your holiday hardships, think about some kind of a ritual that might give you comfort. Maybe it's a candle you light every morning and say a few words to regarding your loss.
Right.
Or maybe you sing a special song. Think of some kind of a ritual, as Ellen said, that gives you joy, that
Mm.
gives you peace, that gives you comfort. And if you can find that, if you can do that, you're taking a very big, beautiful step toward nurturing yourself, loving yourself, and taking good care of yourself at this time of year. And
It's
that's
such
huge.
great advice. It's such great
Mm.
advice. And I would add to that, Paula, because I know this is there, is that, whatever it is, you're going to know it. Do you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, how fun is it that their personality, like, oh, he loved turtles. So what my little ritual is,
Right.
it involves turtles, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a real authentic connection,
Yeah,
and a way to honor and respect and grieve, right?
exactly. That's
Yeah.
the whole idea.
Yeah.
We need to grieve. This is one of those experiences, and I'll leave you with this last thought.
Mm.
The only way out is through.
Oh, right.
The only way out is through.
Mm.
So thank you, Ellen, for helping me with this today. It was so wonderful having your input and your presence and your love. And next week, Ellen will be with us again, and we're going to give you more tools. We're going to talk more about some things you can do to take care of yourself during the holidays when you're grieving. So be with us, and thanks for being with us today. Take care, everybody.